Namaste. Welcome to Satsang today. Today, what I feel moved to talk about is perhaps the most challenging part of our awakening. Most challenging part of my awakening is not often it's not the part that we really think it will be, the most difficult part. And for me, there were several years spent lost in one particular aspect of the illusion that I see almost everybody. In fact, I've never met anybody that doesn't get lost in this part of the illusion. Um, and I wanted to try to bring light to that today, to bring some more conscious understanding, because as a teacher, I spend a large amount of my time on this particular aspect of the illusion. And it is perhaps the most challenging to see and to stay conscious of the fact that this is also illusion, this part of it. So I want to try to bring together in a nutshell what's been coming up for the Sangha in quite a few different ways over the last couple of weeks, and hopefully package it into something that's memorable and actionable, even though there is no doer. So for me, in my own awakening, I thought that the most difficult part of my awakening was, well, I thought it was many different things. Firstly, maybe to even see what the truth of my being actually is, to break through that first time into clear seeing. Turns out it wasn't that. And then like how to embody the truth, how to let it pervade my relationships, my life, my parenting, my family relationships, my work and everything. And it turns out it wasn't that either. And it turned out to be something that was really very subtle and very obscure. So that's where I wanted to really point to it today. We might, if I ask anyone here on this satsang what is their most challenging place in their awakening right now, probably we would all, and I would have done too, point to somewhere in our lives where there's great resistance or great difficulty in doing the practice or applying what we've seen to be true. For most of us, it seems really clear that the hardest part is where I'm struggling most to apply or to do the practice. But what if it is somewhere else and we keep missing it? What if the most challenging part of our awakening is something that we're not even seeing? Something that perhaps we hear in a moment described by a teacher, or we read it in a book, or we hear someone else talk about it, but then it's completely forgotten again because it is so the seeing that we're having is so contradictory to certain thoughts that we're holding on to. So we all initially have this idea that we are the believer of thoughts, that we are the doer of actions, and the decider of decisions, that the separate self, the person, the someone that seems to start this journey to awakening. The idea of that, the separate self, is sustained in these three areas more than any other at all. So the idea that I'm the one choosing what words come out of my mouth right now, me, the separate being. I am choosing, but not in the same way that I thought. I am everywhere, and I'm choosing all words, actions, and speech, not as a personal entity. I'm not deciding decisions either. They're just happening spontaneously. I'm not doing any actions either. But most of all, or my body does the actions, I should say. Most of all, I'm not the believer of thoughts. I'm not the one who fell into illusion and has to come back out of it. So we might hear that sentence and go, yep, I am the awareness is already free. And the silence, the consciousness, the presence, the real self, the divine self, the truth, the absolute reality, whatever we're calling it, it's already free and could never not be. And yet, the one place that I see everyone, and myself included, for several years, making an enormous effort to undo something that was never done is here in this believer of thoughts. I'm the one that's got to transcend the mind. I've got to question all of my thoughts, and especially the major ones, and gradually come away from the mind, unsticking myself from the mind one thought at a time, and gradually I'm getting more and more free of these thoughts. And that may be what self-inquiry and meditation and contemplation seem to achieve. But actually, they're there to show us one important fact. If we really follow the contemplation, the inquiry, self-inquiry, the meditation, it will show us something, that we're already free, that we never identified with the body in the first place. The infinite consciousness that is everywhere, formlessness. It doesn't have capacity to identify with anything. It just is. It can appear as thoughts about identification and a belief, which is just a thought that's given a lot of attention to. A belief that there is a believer of thoughts that has to be undone. But it is always free, and it is what we are right now. If we were to do some self-inquiry, we'd get back to the place immediately or quickly or soon where we realize we aren't actually a form at all. Then what we are is more like spaciousness, formlessness, with no capacity to hold on or let go of anything at all. That we are simply watching, observing, and all of this spiritual practice, spiritual work, transcendence, resistance, all of it, clear seeing, confusion, everything is just happening in front of us. As if you're watching a movie, and the movie's called My Awakening Journey. And in the movie is a character who's sure that they're doing this awakening themselves. And we're so embroiled with this character that we've forgotten that we're just watching. We're so enjoying the drama of the movie and suffering the drama of the movie that we're not even aware that we're sitting over here watching the screen in front of us. So for me, the hardest part of my awakening, and the slowest and the most painful, they're all going to be the same. The slowest, hardest, and most painful will be all at the same time, was coming to the point where I remembered to remember that I'm not doing anything, not even contemplation, not even self-inquiry, not even meditation. I just am. And that's all I can ever be. Just completely present in here. And then the spiritual practice that's going on is going on in the manifestation, in that which seems to be moving through time and space. An individual but not separate consciousness. A wave on the ocean surface, not separate to the wave, but nonetheless looking different as a wave. That the inquiry, the contemplation, the attending of this satsang, all of it is just going on while I'm watching. And that there isn't anything I can or need to do as the consciousness, as the presence, as the infinite self, to free myself from identification, because I was never involved in that at all. I never fell into illusion, and certainly cannot climb back out. I'm watching the content of my thoughts, my mind stream, become gradually more enlightened, thoughts about reality rather than thoughts about being a someone, chosen more and more often, but no chooser. Spiritual practice, chosen more and more often, but no chooser. Attention moving away from thoughts and back towards the infinite self that I already am more often, but no mover of attention. Only the intention to come back to clear seeing, which is also just arising within me. I'd like to recognize myself more, says thought. And attention moves with that thought. The attention moving and the thought are the same thing, coming back to the self. But I didn't do that. I didn't make that happen. I have no control over my awakening at all as a separate being. As a separate being. None. I'm not the mover of attention. I'm not the decider of thoughts. Decisions, rather. I'm not the thinker of thoughts. I'm not the believer of beliefs. I'm not the transcender of the mind. I'm certainly not the resistor. I'm not the practicer either. Practice is just going on. And I would see this over and over again. Stay as the self. I just am. I just am. I just am. I still am. I still am. And then attention would move to some thought. The body would get very contracted. There'd be some negative emotion, the same old experience going on in my outer world. And like a reflex, I would want to do something to fix that. It was habitual, automatic. And time again, it took a painful amount of time to come back to the seeing. I can't fix that. I don't need to fix that. I'm not actually suffering. I'm already free. It's my mind, my thought structure, my psychological self that's suffering, which is really just a bunch of thoughts and their resulting emotions. Not to belittle that, but it is not me in my first and foremost expression. And the idea that I could do anything to change the course of my awakening is pure fiction. Our mind doesn't like to hear this because it thinks, well, if I can't do anything, I am totally out of control and I will never wake up and I will never be free of illusion. But you don't need to wake up. You are already free of illusion and you are watching the body and mind and the relationships and the career and the finances and the family become an expression of that truth. That's all that's happening. So what is the most important thing for you to remember? And how can you make sure that you remember? And what happens when you admit finally that you can't do anything you can't even move attention? If I ask you now to take your attention off what you're seeing on the screen and to move it to someplace else in the room, it might move, attention might move, your eyes might move, but did you make that happen? As a separate being, did you do something to make that happen? Or did it move by intention? My question, my suggestion caused an intention to arise inside. Or my question and the intention in you were the same thing in two different bodies. And attention just moved. And there's no personal entity steering that wheel of where the attention goes. There's no one driving the bus in that way. It was the last place that I wanted to hang out because initially it made me feel powerless. I'm just going to be suffering forever. I'm never going to be free, says mind. Because mind can't recognize that you're already free, actually. And that this is the most loving thing that we can do for our mind and our body and our life and our loved ones and our relationships and our career and our finances. When I finally admit that I can't do anything, I'll also realize quite quickly afterwards that I don't need to, that my simple observation of my awakening and a clear recognition that I can't do anything about it as the infinite self will come to this deep and profound insight that I don't need to, that it's happening by itself as an expression of the infinite intelligence that I am pouring through the form. It's happening spontaneously. And my imaginary attempts to speed it up have actually been slowing it down. So the last and the least most popular place in awakening is I am just watching. And if this is clear right now, good. But what can you do to make sure that you don't go back into that? How can you remind yourself? Because for me, I would see this, and then 3 months later, I'd be noticing my body in deep contraction and a whole lot of negative emotions, and the same old patterns cycling around in my experience as my experience. And I'd realize that for the last 3 months, the major content of my mind had been that I have to do something. I have to undo what's been done, that I'm suffering because I haven't yet undone what I did originally, which is falling into illusion. When actually I'm suffering because I think there's something I can do. So we're not suffering ever because we haven't yet pulled ourselves out of the bad dream that we're stuck in. We're suffering because we haven't fully realized we're only dreaming. And this isn't an invalidation of the world and what's going on in the world. This is the only way to right what we think needs to be righted, to put right, and have happen what we want to happen. First of all, our own awakening, and then onwards from there. I'm going to say it again because I want to just crystallize it into these 2 sentences so that we perhaps can put it in a I don't know, I had post-it notes all over the house, in the car, anywhere I would see them, so that I didn't forget, because I couldn't go through another 3 months of 6 months. The first cycle took a year to realize. Wow, I went right back into the idea that I could do something. I agreed with that straight away. 10 seconds after I'd seen that I couldn't do anything, and nor did I need to. I went right back into that, and I was lost for a year. And then after that year, there was this fire of determination. Next time took 3 months. And then the next time took 2 months because I spent the first month beating myself up instead of just going, okay, that happened. Let me move on. So after this 2 months time, I ended up with notes all over the house, in my slippers, in the fridge, by the teapot, everywhere, in the car, in my bedroom. So it was the first thing I saw. I just am. Like I said, I just am. And then in capital letters underneath, I can't do anything. Sometimes I'd write, there's no believer of thoughts. But whatever it took in that moment to make sure I didn't fall back, apparently. Here's where the paradox really kicks in. Anything I say makes it sound like I'm doing something. So what can you do to make sure that you remember the next 2 sentences? So you're never suffering because you haven't yet freed yourself enough or embodied this enough or whatever else we're believing. You're only suffering because we think that there's something going on other than just watching. The mind, the body, the attention, the intention, the spiritual practice, or the lack thereof, the resistance or the breaking through, it's all just going on by itself while you watch. And as you remind yourself of that over and over, you'll feel freer and freer You'll realize you've always been free. And somehow magically, by admitting you have no control, the attention comes to rest on you, the real self, peace. So for me, it became about what is the most important thing for me to remember. And that the hardest point, most challenging point in my awakening might not be at all what I thought it was. It might be coming to see somehow that I'm lost in some illusion. I think I'm lost in some illusion and I really aren't. And over again, we come to seeing that that's not true, that we're already free. Over and over again, somehow this this veiled cloud of hypnosis or whatever illusion fog comes back over us. Fascination with thoughts rather than actual experience. Obsession with what we think is going on in our awakening rather than what's actually going on, which is nothing at all. You're already free. So I've said that in as many ways as I can to try to highlight the most important part of the whole awakening thing. And it may seem counterintuitive to recognize that you can't do anything when the body's really in the grip of some negative emotion, or there's something terrible going on in the world, or there's some cyclic pattern going on in your life, or that you're sure that you're suffering. But maybe this is the most compassionate thing to do for yourself, for the world, to admit and remember and go to whatever lengths you want to remember to remember. And then from there, see what happens with the world and your life and everything. Because soon after we've finished this, maybe even now while I'm talking, the idea is going to present itself that you can do something with what I've just said. That there's something you can do with it. You can take it and run with it. And will you buy that? And most likely you will, because we all do. But what will you do? What will you put in place to make sure that you remember? You're never suffering because you're not yet free. You're suffering because you haven't remembered you're already free. And that's a very different thing. One involves a long process that never comes to an end of trying to free yourself from the illusion that you're not even stuck in. It's happening on the level of the mind and attention. And one is instant freedom. Whoa, there I was about to go off again. Let me come back and remember I'm already free. For me, this became the most important, the Holy Grail, the direction, the most important thing to follow. So I hope it's inspired you in some way, what I've said, that this is a lot easier and simpler than you think. And that the reason for any of the practice going on is just to clear away the illusionary power of thought and belief that stops this being so stunningly obvious all the time. And that's all any awakened being has done, or not done, is to see and see and see and see and see and see and see until even the content of the mind has changed. I'm already free. I'm already free. There's nothing to do. There's nothing for me to do. And I'm going to watch what effect that has on my world, my body, my life, the world. It's an especially poignant message right now when a lot of us might be really compelled to do a lot of spiritual practice with what's going on the planet. Not just this week, but, where we are right now in our evolution as a species, human beings. But what's the most effective thing? What's going to lead to real change? Is it to get lost in this idea again that there's further for you to go? Or is it to remember You're already home and you never left, nor could you ever. There's no door where you could exit into the illusion. It just never happened. And I'm emphasizing this because it is the hardest sticking point for all of us, isn't it? But it's because we're so devoted to truth and awakening that we want to make sure it happens. Of course we do. Because we're tired of feeling how we feel in our bodies and our minds. And we want to make sure we're free. But that's never going to come by a lot of effort. Only a recognition and a remembrance, a vigilance to hold vigil over what is already true and the only thing that's ever been true. I'll stop there because I could go on for an hour just about that subject. So we'll read 2 questions that have been sent in, and then if anybody wants to, I'll take up to 3 questions here online as well. Feel free to raise your hand. Over the years doing these practices, it seemed harder for a romantic relationship to develop. I feel love for another person, but no attachment. When I feel their attachment for me, I push it away. It's almost as if it's seen as a threat to my spiritual practice. I see that as the most important thing and part of me feels I cannot balance that and a relationship with another person at the same time. I intellectually understand this false imagination, but it is a pattern that comes up again and again and feels so real. Did you ever experience this? How can I see this more consistently for what it is? So really, this isn't about even balancing. This isn't even about a relationship, attachment, or any of that. This is about the idea that your awakening, your seeing, your spiritual work is something completely different to and separate from a romantic relationship. So you can see that if you feel that they're separate, 2 different things, I can either focus in here or out there, and I need to get that balance right. And I won't get that balance right. I'll swing from one to the other if I'm sure that they are 2 different things. Here's the mind's propensity to divide reality into 2 categories, inside and outside, or spiritual and non-spiritual, awakening and normal life, and that division does not exist. What if a romantic relationship is your satsang right now, is your meditation right now? And we could do this with our career or any part of our life, a relationship with our children, our family, our parents, siblings. So what if they're not 2 things? You can't balance them because they're not 2. So just coming to see, what if they are the same thing? There's a reason that you want a relationship even, and that's because it's part of your particular satsang. The application of what you're seeing on the inner is the relationship. It happens in the relationship. A life is all relationships. My relationship with my spouse, my partner, my children, my parents, my siblings, my boss, my co-workers, my relationship with money, my relationship with time, my relationship with awakening, on and on it goes. So getting clear about what this is actually about, the idea that there are 2 realms, the outer world of experience and the inner world of thoughts and seeings and spiritual work and awakening, being completely separate to and different from what's going on in our experience, but they are so linked together. They are 2 sides of the same coin. You can't have a coin with only one side on it. It can't exist. Even if the other side was blank, it would still be there blank. So you can't have the awakening without the outer world changing too. If the outer world isn't changing, then some part of your awakening isn't changing either. And usually it's this particular thought. For me, it was finances, children, family, And of course, I really believed that my relationship with money was nothing to do with my awakening for such a long time. And then finally, I saw the light. If I'm everywhere, then everything has to be included in my satsang. And where the rubber meets the road is where we apply this in our daily experience. You can sit in satsang for hours and hours and hours and then completely forget everything, go back into separation when we go to meet our Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, Mr. and Mrs. Right Now, and be just as lost afterwards. Or we could see that the friction that's coming up in a relationship, the challenges, are there to point us to thoughts that we haven't yet worked our way to seeing into. So again, just recognizing this might not be about what I think it is about. I'm trying to balance two things that are really only one thing, and that's why it's not working. If I go really inwards towards my awakening, ignore the relationships in my life will start going wrong just to pull my attention back out so I can apply, because I've said I want truth so much. Got to see it and then be it. See it, be it, see it, be it. And the outer world, the reason for having a human body is to apply what you've seen. So I hope that helps. Seeing that it's about, you can't really fully awaken without resolving this issue in relationships. And it might be a lot easier than you thought once you know what the actual issue is. Okay, so I'll read this second one and then I'll come to the hands that are up. Dearest Helen, the man I've loved for 2 years, and I had to part in August as he cannot express his love, and it was torturous for us both. I threw myself completely into my practice and felt so good and strong. I contacted him with excitement. He was full of cruel projections and insults. I know these were unintentional, as he admits. He is kindergarten level, as he admits, he is kindergarten level in emotional intelligence. It nearly killed me, but I've gone quiet again. And now I think perhaps I need to learn to incorporate my excitement and, as you said, shift to self-love and then see later what might happen. The yearning and the sadness is still so painful, and recently you suggested I question whether I need the love to come from outside, but I yearn to share through speech and the physical. I really want to get to a more self-contained place where I drink from the source. I'm using Course in Miracles, thank you, and cry with it. It's so wonderful. In gratitude. I hope this resonates for others who feel alone. Love, lots of love. So what's happening here is the same thing as the previous question. There's a desire to go and live our awakening in the relationship, and thoughts come up in the way of thoughts are shown to us, ideas that we're holding on to in the way of this unconditional love expressing itself in and as a relationship. And you sent a thing in and we did talk about self-love, as in the love and the approval and the recognition that you're looking for from this person to come from the inside. But maybe you only half heard what I said then as an inside out. So stepping back from trying to get love from people from the outside is only half of it. Allowing it to come from the inside through and as our life is the other part. But you said this yearning and sadness is still so painful, and recently you suggested I question whether I need the love to come from outside, but I yearn to share through speech and the physical. That sentence, but I yearn to share through speech and the physical, implies to me that there's some belief deep down that allowing this love to come from inside it's not the same as physical expression. So it's like being really, really thirsty and going around and collecting a cup or a thimble of water from all of your nearby friends. You drink that cup and they haven't got any water to spare either. They're also thirsty. So they give you a little bit and you're just kind of getting by. What I'm asking you to do is go connect the hose pipe turn on the tap and let it come right through. You drink as much as you want, and then you shower them in it because it's just coming and coming and coming as faster than you know what to do, with so much love that all it can do is express itself physically. And of course, here we're talking about a romantic relationship, but it doesn't always have to express itself that way. It's expressing itself this way right now for me. And there is a physical component to that, as in using the body to express that love. It cannot not express itself when it's infinite supply. When the pipe is connected to the tap and the tap is turned on, it's flowing. And the belief that I need to get it from the outside will cut off that flow, turn the tap off. And the belief that if I get it from the inside, I'm going to miss out on the joy and fun of a romantic relationship. What if that's totally wrong? What if the only way I can experience the infinite love and joy and continuous unfolding expansion that are two human beings when they're unconditionally loving each other is by letting it come from the inside out, out into the world? That's a very poignant sentence. But you started with a but, meaning that there's some belief that if I don't try to get it from someone, I won't be experiencing it in my life. It's the other way around, actually. The moment I stop trying to get what I think I need from others, I'll be experiencing it all the time, everywhere, more and more in my relationships. So I hope that helps you and anyone, like you said, that feels alone right now or lonely. So we'll go to Patrick when you're ready. Oh, it's done. There we go. Are you there, Don? Okay, perhaps we will.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
wonderful.
So I'm still struggling a lot with my family of origin. I think I mentioned that I've been listening to your the number 2 teaching and dissolving the ego a lot, and working with that. And generally I can get to that place of oneness, and um but I guess it's this relationship with my family and my brother that really keeps me struggling. My sister passed years ago, and my parents were both in their 90s as of this week or next week. My mom turns 90, and my dad's already been there. And my parents just my brother has a learning disability, and he refuses to go to a doctor for it. They refuse to ask him to go for it. And, there's a lot of my friends with the same learning disability are just doing wonderfully in the world, and they consider it the key to their success. It's called dyslexia. And,
Yep, I
my
have it.
parents, excuse me.
I have it too.
Yeah. And,
Or I should
and
say, I'm sorry, the politically correct phrase is I am dyslexic. Not something I have, it's something I am. I'm training myself there. Sorry, carry on.
that's the politically correct, as I am dyslexic.
Apparently, so my daughter tells me. Because
Um,
it's not something I have or have acquired, or it's not some kind of um, impediment. It is the unique way that my body and mind function, let's say. So
okay. So I want to be, for these purposes and all purposes, I want to be politically and accurately correct.
I'm working on
And
it. It's a work in progress here.
okay, so well, gosh, you're the wrong person to come to with this. And but or the so anyway, it's just that he's like a deity. He's like the Christ child, and maybe he is my Christ child, and maybe I'm, looking at everything wrong because I don't have the benefits. But a lot of my friends, in fact, in my city, one of my friends is the head of dyslexia, and for the city, and she has a big practice. Both her boys graduated early with it. The
Let me
guy
ask
that I
you something, if I can interject here.
Yes,
Why do you
please.
need him to be different? Why do you need your brother to be different or to act
I
different?
don't I don't need him to act different. I was hoping my parents would act different, but
Why do you need your
regardless,
parents to be different?
well, it's around financial stuff. They just keep giving him money. I'm struggling to decide whether to, go ahead and I want to move overseas for my retirement, and I either need to start taking Social Security or build a new business there, and they're pretty dependent on me, and they want me to stay here, and I want to stay here for them, but I don't know that I can afford to, and they
So
refuse to.
you're trying to get your parents and your brother to change
Right. And so I'm trying to be.
please let me
I'm,
finish the sentence. Yeah.
okay. Okay.
You're trying to get them to change so that you can get what you want and need. Because there's a belief that what you want and need is going to be affected by outer circumstances. So why don't you flip that on its head? Let me really look at what I want in my life and then stay open to how it might come, rather than asking others to change so that I can get what I want when there aren't any others. It's an endless cycle. I'm expecting people out there to change, to be different than they are for very good reasons, very noble reasons, but still it will be fruitless at this point in your awakening because there aren't any other beings. So instead of wanting things out there to change before you can get what you want, I want you to flip that over and really look clearly defining what you want. You said move overseas, I get that, but really defining it and then looking at the reasons why it can't happen and why you think it can't happen, I should say, and then see if you just stay open. Because right now you're saying, I can't have what I want. I can't live
No,
the
I,
life
I,
that I
I
want.
can, I can have what I want. I can. But
Okay.
what's the trade-off is I do want to be here for my parents as they age. And I do want that other. And maybe but no, I can move if I want to. I can
Okay.
leave. I'm
So
free.
you don't need them to change then.
No, maybe, I need to change, or I need to address that paradox.
And can you change? Or is there only clearer seeing that can happen that you are yourself, of course, you are your brother, you are your parents. What happens when you remember all of that while still honoring what that individual body and mind wants and would like to experience? There's a belief in at least four separate beings here: yourself, your brother, and your two parents. And that's why this is stuck. It's not shifting.
You're saying I'm believing in four different individuals, and they're not four different individuals. There's only one.
Yeah. So recognizing that you're all the same being, even the same being talking right now is wanting to this, and then getting clear on what the body mind called Don really wants to experience, and then seeing what happens from there. What happens when I feel the desire for what I want without separating myself from the other beings involved in it. And I remember that I am infinitely powerful. What happens then when I just feel what I want and see what happens without having to have anything else or anyone else change in that process?
Yeah, I can do that. And when I'm gonna I can kind of talk to my mom a little bit about this. And I was not asking her to change or them to change. I was just telling her them
You are
changes
with
I
your
might.
energy. You are with your energy, right? You might not be saying
Um,
it verbally.
I don't know. I think that day I was in a really good space. I wasn't, because I wasn't going to address her from a wanting. Um, But I am now with you. Yes.
The first thing you said was that you would like them to be different with your brother. You would like them to encourage him to go and get
But I didn't say anything about that. I've accepted that this is what's going on, that this isn't going to change.
I'll stop
But I do.
poking.
No, you don't have to start poking. I mean, in that moment, I don't think I was asking for that. I was just saying this is what and maybe I was wanting her to change and say something different when I was talking to her. You're you can poke away, please.
Just the simplest thing would be to really get clear on what you want, and then as you do that, you'll see why you don't think it can happen. And all those reasons will involve other beings, separate beings. And you'll see that it's been stuck in this limbo because I want what I want, me, the infinite being, but I'm believing that there are separate other beings to me that are stopping this from happening in some way, or certain things that are outside of me that are stopping me, like money, with the belief that money is outside, separate to me and not me.
Okay.
So just looking at what you really want. If there was nothing in the way of you doing what you wanted right now, what would that be? Spending some time really looking at that and then
I don't know.
examining
I
the
don't know.
reason. So that would be the first thing, right? How can you have something happen that you don't know what it is? Most of us are not very clear on what we want at all. We might have even uh, bought this idea that we shouldn't have any desires. That there aren't any desires as the unmanifest self, but when the self appears as a human being, there are a whole bunch of desires. And part of the process was getting back in touch with those for myself. What is it that this individual, but not separate aspect of consciousness wants to experience? So I'd recommend that as a starting place, getting really clear on what do I want? Because then the whole universe is moving to make that happen. But if it isn't clear what you really want, that's very hard for it to show up. And then go from there, yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Thank you for letting me be quite direct.
Do you ever do anything else?
Sometimes. Depends how much
Okay.
resistance, yeah. But you can sort of feel it out, and I'm constantly feeling how much resistance is there. So, yeah, and I could have
Well,
been even more direct than that, but yeah. Anyway, we'll
I know
leave
you
it
can.
there. Yeah.
If you want to, I'm raw and open, so
No,
go for it.
you've got the message. I'm happy with that. You've got the point of what I was saying. So,
Okay.
thank you.
And can you illuminate the I am dyslexic just a second more and what that means for you and how I can
For
let that
me,
crystallize as well?
yeah, my daughter is diagnosed with it, my youngest daughter, and my son with autism, and we were lucky enough, lucky, whatever, to be around school teachers, educational people who were very proactive in pointing out what not only the getting clear on the ways that the learning system wasn't helping my youngest daughter progress, but also being, you know, and adjusting to what can we do to help her with the ways it's holding her back, this dyslexia. But most importantly, digging out what unique gifts and talents that gave her. And the same with my son with the autism, and shifting my thinking from this is something that's holding me back when I realized myself, this is what's going on with me too, dyslexia, to now I'm feeling like I'm finally understanding why this body and mind has acted a certain way all of my this life. And that understanding is a form of self-love. And then I can begin to adjust. Like if I have any more than two questions to read out, I ask someone else to do it, to read it for me, because that's about as much as I can do reading from a screen and verbalizing it without it really starting to uh, to be a monumental effort. So just working with that better as an expression of self-love and realizing it is part of this body and mind. It's how uniquely this consciousness, this infinite self, is expressing itself. It need not only be, as it's traditionally been seen, perhaps an impediment. With it comes certain differences in the way that the brain thinks. This phrase neurodiversity, I love it. You know, no two brains are the same, and each one has a different propensity or gift or talent. Yeah. Does that help?
That helps a lot. That helps a whole lot. Thank you.
Good. Wonderful. Nice to talk to you.
Mhm.
Okay. Anamika?
Hi, can you hear
Hi.
me?
I can.
Okay, wonderful. Well, this was unbelievable, amazing. It was like most questions are answered, but unbelievable. It was like everything was just what is going on in this mind during this week. And still there is like sensing the separation between what is out there and in there. And then I heard you say, apply what you see. And there is like, whoa. And the solar plexus is so much going in tension this week. It's like never stopping.
Yeah.
So there is a deep desire to truly clearly see it, and then applying it, and there is something disconnecting. There is like, how now?
Could you give me a little more detail on the situation you're trying to apply
It's
it to,
two
and what you've
things.
seen?
It's yes, sorry. It's especially when I go in normal life,
Right.
especially with my grandchildren. Then it's like, oh, I'm lost. When can I go back home and do some Satsang and sit in peace? That's the first thing. And then it's also very much when I'm going into self-inquiry, using the questions. It's like I stay on a when I asked like this morning, is it really true I don't deserve to exist and to be happy? It's normally it goes to the tension in the solar plexus.
Yeah.
And nothing else. And it's like, am I stuck? What's happening? Is it really working? So then the other questions come up, of course. So it's mostly those two things. And I started to see like, wow, but I'm believing I'm doing it. And so then I asked another question like, but who is watching? Who knows what is going on? But there is like, yeah, something is.
So you're asking a question. Is it true I don't deserve happiness to exist or to be happy? And just so I'm clear, tension is arising in the solar plexus area. Yeah. What else happens?
It's like the sense that this belief is really believed, instead of I see clearer that it's not true.
So maybe the question is showing you the real idea underneath, which is I can't get beyond this. I can't move beyond this. I'm never gonna transcend this. It's impossible. And it's a feeling of being disempowered, powerless.
Yes.
The solar plexus, that chakra is all about the seat of our personal power, individual power, where it meets our divine power. So if we really feel powerless, it's going to really block this center up, isn't it? Slow it right down. So can you be powerless over a belief? I mean, yes, we've had that experience again and again. I just can't get beyond this. But the experience is not proof of truth. The experience is proof that I have believed I'm powerless. But can I really be, given what I've seen myself to be or seeing, can I really be powerless over this belief? Or anything at all? What happens now in your solar plexus?
Solar plexus is in rest, and it's now in the intestinals that are like, oh, whoa, something is like, yes, that's it, but yeah.
So every time you ask this question, you see immediate answer, but perhaps the answer hasn't been quite as clear. And we have this I just can't let enough money in. I just can't transcend this pattern. I just can't find the right person. I just can't, stay in the
And move
peace.
on.
I can't stay as the self. On and on and on it goes. And it's a belief in being a separate someone who's powerless. But if it's that which creates the cosmos, I'm going to ask you, the creator of the cosmos, can you be powerless over anything? Least of all, a tiny little thought.
There is no, and something is like saying, but you are answering this, but it's like there is a wall hitting there, like,
Just go around it.
who
Go
is
around the wall.
answering? I'll go around it, okay.
Go around the wall.
When I
Kind of
go
where
around the
would you put
wall,
a wall in the infinite self that's everywhere? Where would the wall be that it could block you?
nowhere. No, it's true.
I am
Yeah,
the
of
wall
course.
also, right?
I am
I'm
the wall.
laughing and smiling because I've been right where you are, like yeah, but I get that intellectually. I see that I can't be powerless, but
Exactly.
and,
Yeah,
and that stuff will carry on, but you just remain
exactly.
resolute. I am that from which all of this arises. This is my painting, my creation. What could possibly stop me? And I'm not going to reference my previous experiences of failing to overcome something as evidence that I'm powerless, because it'll go round and round again.
Wow, it's like really allowing the greatness of being.
Yeah, let the mind do its thing. It will go, that's not going to fix every problem you've had just to remember who you really are. Maybe it will, And you can feel the difference immediately. The energy is flowing through the body, through the chakra system differently.
Yes, it does.
Wonderful.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go to, last but not least, Adrienne.
Hello.
Hi.
I wanted to ask a short question about the voice in the head. It's obviously not my voice. How do we recognize this, that this voice is not my voice?
For me, it was a couple of ways. It was my absolute failure to shut it up, to say, like, if it was my voice, I'd be able to stop it or make it say nicer things, something like that. I'd be able to change what it's saying. And it was clear I had absolutely no control over it in that way, at least. But most of all, through direct seeing of who I really am, through self-inquiry, which is something we can do right now, or you can do on your own, whichever you want. But seeing that you are not a thing, because the voice in the head is talking to who you think you are, not who you actually are. Can you sense that? That's why when it talks, it has this apparent capacity to stimulate a lot of triggering emotions, all of that, noise and confusion. Because the basic idea we have is it's talking to me, and I have to listen to it, and what it's saying is relevant to me. But as you see who you really are, Who is it that's hearing the mind? What is hearing the mind? And really looking, just taking a moment to look right now. Can you find anyone that is listening to the mind?
It's just that awareness that knows everything that's happening.
And is awareness affected by this voice in the head? Let's really, really slow down and look at this one. Because if we don't investigate this properly, we'll skip right past the fact. And so awareness, I'm aware of my thoughts. I'm aware of the voice in the head. Am I affected by anything that's going on in there?
It seems when the thoughts are happening, it feels like it's my voice, that I'm thinking these thoughts. But after the thought, I can tell myself, oh, it wasn't me talking. It's just the ego talking.
Let's go even further back than that. Let's really look at the awareness the best you can. You can't sort of look at it with your eyes, but is it a thing that can be affected by thoughts?
No.
And does it need to get rid of those thoughts, that voice in the head?
No.
So what if the voice in the head sometimes says nice things and sometimes not so nice things? Has the awareness changed at all?
No.
And you're doing great. What is it then that stops us from recognizing we're completely free? Mustn't it be something like a thought that keeps popping up that says, I can't quite stay as the awareness yet all the time? Sometimes I remember I'm awareness and I'm not affected by anything. Sometimes I forget and seem to get affected again.
It seems like when the thoughts come, I go completely unconscious.
So what do you mean by unconscious? Do you mean that you're paying attention to those thoughts completely?
Yes, I'm completely believing that this is myself talking.
So what it seems that you're unconscious in that moment, but aren't you still watching your attention go with those thoughts?
Yes.
Is the awareness watching the attention? Is it moving? Is awareness moving? So you're aware right now that your attention is listening to these words.
Yes.
And if attention went to listen to a thought, you'd be aware of that too.
Yes.
Is the awareness any different when it looks at itself or when it looks at thoughts?
No.
So are you ever unconscious then, unaware?
Not really unaware, no.
Aware of attention, always aware and always watching where attention is. So what you call unconscious is when attention goes back to thoughts rather than looking at the awareness.
Yes.
But awareness is here, attention is in front of it, looking out at thoughts or turning around to look at the awareness. And are you affected by any of that as the awareness?
No.
Do you realize what you've just said there? Do you realize how profound that is?
No.
I know that's why I'm saying it. So, you have been identifying as the attention that's moving and changing. But you're watching attention.
I see. So I'm not the attention.
I'm not the attention. It's the last place we all hang out in our identification. I need to stop looking at thoughts and keep looking back here at the awareness. And that feels so true.
Yes.
But what if that's not actually your problem? What if you can't manage that because you're already the awareness, always watching, but fascinated with what the attention's doing? In, out, in, attention on awareness, attention on thoughts. Just to investigate this a little bit, sit with it, and am I ever really affected by anything that goes on in front of me, even the movement of the attention?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. And then you'll realize it's not, you're not affected by anything at all. And of course, then strangely, somehow, attention comes and rests on the awareness all the time. Because we're not falsely trying to make it stay in one place, thinking that we can do that. They're just the awareness that can't do anything and don't need to. The voice in the head's talking to the attention, isn't it? Not to you. I'm smiling because I know it's not easy to kind of get this because we're so identified as that which is moving and changing. And so
Yes.
caught up in the idea that we need to keep attention in one place all the time. And it's impossible. But you can recognize that you're always aware of attention. I'm always the awareness watching the attention.
Yes, thank you. I'll have to think about it.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
Just look at it gently when you can, and it'll just become clearer and clearer. Thank you. Okay, so let's leave it there for today. Thank you for your sharing, the questions you sent in and asked here live on the session today. So, thank you. Namaste.